How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing well. So, what brings you in today?
Well, I've been having a little bit of scratchiness going on with my voice, and I've been having a hard time like keeping my voice steady. I feel like it sounds like very wobbly when I'm talking.
Right. So yeah, I've read over your case and everything, and I've talked to your physician, and definitely some roughness qualities that we hear, and that unsteadiness, the inconsistency that you're experiencing whenever you're speaking. Do you feel like that's an accurate evaluation?
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay. And so I talked to your physician, and they have diagnosed you with what's called a granuloma.
Oh wow.
Does that sound familiar at all?
No, not at all.
So this is what your vocal folds usually look like, and then this is what a granuloma is. It's just kind of like an extra growth on your vocal folds. So that's that's what's associated with those changes in your voice that you're experiencing.
Wow. So how did I get this?
So you mentioned that you had a rotator cuff surgery a couple months ago in May.
Right.
And so you were intubated for that, correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
I think so.
So that intubation tube, when it's going, so this is a top view of what your vocal folds look like, and so they move like this when you're speaking, and so your intubation tube goes right in between it, and so when you were under for your surgery, it might have rubbed or caused irritation, which is what produced that granuloma that you see.
Wow, that must have been a lot of irritation.
Yeah.
So is this something that's cancerous? Do I have throat cancer now? What does this mean?
No, I would think of it kind of like a blister, when you put on a new pair of shoes and there's lots of rubbing and you have that irritation.
Okay.
That's how I would kind of associate your granuloma that's there.
Okay, so this is something that could go away, like how a blister heals itself?
Yeah, if your physician recommends it, you could get surgery to remove it. That's something you might want to discuss with him and see what your options are.
Okay.
But right now we're going to kind of focus on what kind of voice therapy you could benefit from to see some changes in the voice quality that you have currently.
Okay.
So voice therapy is basically just taking care of your voice and making sure it's kind of like any sort of wellness for your body, just making sure that those muscles are well maintained, and you might see some benefit in the overall perception of how your voice is compared to before you experience these changes.
Okay.
Do you have any questions for me?
I don't think so.
Okay, great.
Definitely ready to get started with this therapy and get my voice back to normal, hopefully.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about a couple techniques that we can implement in your everyday life, so then you'll be able to hopefully experience some changes in your voice overall. Have you ever thought about taking care of your voice or your voice as a kind of like a muscle? Have you ever thought about that before?
No, not really, but it would make sense that it's a muscle. You use it so much and you're always talking with it, so.
Right, and so that motion that I mentioned, that happens very rapidly, and so when you use your voice a lot or you have this extra irritation that's occurring, that's why we hear those changes in your voice. And so through these techniques, we're going to explore some ways that we can reduce that irritation that you're experiencing.
Okay.
So it's kind of, like I mentioned, it's like a muscle, and so your voice, if you go to the gym, you want to be sure to exercise your muscles, but then also give them some rest. And so that's what we're going to be focusing on, is making sure that we're not using our muscles to a max potential. We kind of want to keep it up to a low and middle range so that we can reduce that overall irritation.
So I know when I go to the gym, you usually do like arm day, and then you do like leg day, and then you have like a rest day.
Right.
So how does that relate to my voice? Will I have to take like a rest day where I'm not talking?
No. So like I mentioned before, sometimes we can think of it as a scale. The scale 1 to 10, 10 being like your max effort on your voice that you're using. We want to just bring that down to like a 3, 4, 5 range versus being up at a higher range. Where do you feel like your voice is at right now when you're using it?
So just like right now in therapy, or like on a daily basis, like at work and everything?
I would say on an average basis between work and at home.
Okay, I'd probably say I'm like at a 7 or an 8. I feel like I usually have to talk pretty loud, my wife's losing her hearing, and I have to talk really loud at work because I'm an industrial engineer, so it can be really loud at work sometimes, so you really have to speak up.
I understand, yeah. So this 7 or an 8 that you're putting your voice use at right now, that can potentially add to that irritation that you might be experiencing. So I'm hoping that we can reduce overall using these techniques that I'm about to explain to around a 4 or 5, so then you might see some improvements in your voice quality.
Okay.
And so we'll move on and see how we can best improve that in your everyday life.
Sure.
So first thing I would like to talk about is vocal hygiene. Vocal hygiene can include a lot of things, but what I'd like you to focus on mostly is first staying hydrated. Do you feel like you drink a lot of water, or what do you usually drink on a daily basis?
Let's see. I wake up and I usually have 2 cups of coffee and my little thermos that I take to work with me. And then for lunch, I'll maybe go out with the boys, get a soda, and then maybe I'll have a glass of water with dinner.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm probably not drinking enough water right now.
Yeah, so what I would recommend based off of what you're reporting on your daily basis is that just like we've talked about exercising your vocal cords and making sure that we want to take care of them, it's the same like when you go to the gym, you wouldn't necessarily drink like a cup of coffee before. You'd want to make sure you're nice and hydrated with some water. And so that's what I would recommend, is increasing that water intake that you have. And maybe we can use something like a daily vocal hygiene log, where you ask yourself, how does your voice feel at the beginning of the day versus the end of the day? See what kind of changes you might be experiencing.
Okay.
And then how much water you're drinking throughout the day. And then if any yelling is occurring, because that can also be sort of an irritant to your voice. And so you can do this over the course of a couple days and see how it feels. Do you feel like that's something you'd be able to do?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
I could just bring this with me to work and fill it out as I'm going through the day.
Yeah, that's great. And so making sure you take in as much tea or water as you can, that's really going to help hydrate those vocal folds and keep them less irritated.
Okay.
Another one that I would like you to use is what we call a silent cough. I noticed in your medical history that it was noted that you tend to clear your throat a lot and cough a lot. Do you feel like that's an accurate description?
Yeah, I'd say so. I have a pretty constant tickle that's on my throat, so I just try and clear it out. I don't know if it's mucus or what. I don't really feel congested, so I don't know, but it's always there.
Yeah, so I think in addition, as you add water into your daily intake and that becomes more of a habit, that might also decrease the tickle that you feel in your throat potentially. But also I'd like to introduce what we call a silent cough. So like I mentioned,